I mean, let's start with the breaking news. It's really
Yeah.
sad news, obviously, but it's worth our time here today. Normally, we wouldn't really cover these kinds of stories, but it's important today. 2 children are dead and 17 injured after a gunman, Robin Westman, opened fire through church windows during this morning's mass at the Annunciation Catholic School in Minneapolis. The 8:30 a.m. attack has left 1 adult and 6 children in critical condition. FBI Director Kash Patel has labeled the incident domestic terrorism and a hate crime targeting Catholics. There's no evidence of that really at the moment. That's just Kash Patel. The issue here that seems to be the most pressing for people is not is perhaps the identity of the person. He's been identified as Robin Westman, 23-year-old who legally changed their name and identified as transgender. This is not the first time.
Is that factual?
It is factual.
Okay.
And it's not the first time a transgendered person, by the way, has been involved in a school shooting. I'm just trying to analyze the results of a search I did on that subject. But it's really an issue that people need to understand and focus on. I think there's a reluctance amongst many people to raise the identity of this person. But on the other hand, if this is something that's happening in our communities, in our schools, and it is involving trans people, what are we doing to create that situation, and what are we doing to work against it? Now, this is not an opportunity, of course, to hate anybody. This is an opportunity to see if we can figure out why this is happening. So that's why I think it's a really delicate issue, but it's one of those things that we can't really ignore because it might be more than just a single event. This might have happened, at least from my recollection, at least 2 or 3 times now.
Yeah.
There have been trans shooters at schools.
Yeah, or the claim that the shooters were trans. And listen, if indeed that is the case, that is the case. And what happens with these things is we take our eyes off of the victims.
Yeah.
We then want to go and rush to judgment to sort of solidify an ideological position or a cultural position that'll resonate with however many followers we have, or our church groups, or our friends, or people that like to retweet, subtweet, restack, substack, all the other shit that comes with furthering your social media profile. And before everybody rushes to judgment, and I love what you said. Hey, listen, if this is happening and this is the second or third incident where a trans person has committed a mass shooting, obviously, and I like to shy away from those stories, but this is not one you can shy away from because you're going to see every side try to use the murder of young children and shooting of 17 other kids and adults just sitting in a church service doing mass to their cultural and ideological whiplash advantage. And I would encourage everybody to just wait with empathy for the victims. And it might be very, very difficult for a lot of people. But let's just add some context. America has a gun fucking problem. There are 600, not 400. I found this out the other day. Closer to 600 million guns in the United States of America. Wow. I watched the video of Robin Weston's manifesto. It's 10 and a half minutes long. I don't know if I should publish it.
No.
It's largely, I've even consulted terms of service at Substack. I'm like, should I publish this? Because we need to listen to the crazy. That man is fucked. Or woman, however this person identified, is fucked. Deeply,
what was in it? Can you tell me a little bit more about something?
He starts by opening up this manifesto of a bunch of little pieces of paper that he's written on, and he mumbles and he sings, and then he grabs a whole bunch of bullets and he pours them onto the manifesto in the bed. And then he just rambles incoherently, sometimes coherently, for 10 and a half minutes, showing off his guns, the words that he's put on his guns, pointing the gun back at the camera several times, pointing it at himself, apologizing to his family like they all do. This is something I need to do. To separate ideology from really someone who is deeply and dearly screwed in the head, there are a lot of people out there that are like that. And you don't know how they got there. You don't know why they got there. You don't know if it was familial. You don't know if it's a culmination of trauma over time. You don't know if it was isolationism and literally mainlining radical information from what site. We don't know those things.
Yes.
So I would ask everybody watching and everybody listening to refrain from trying to weaponize this against any group, any person, any Minnesotan, because what happened today is something that happens in America every single day. It probably happened in 4 or 5 other cities across the United States. What am I talking about? I'm talking about a mass shooting by a psycho. And this is not
There's
something that
four, I
is
think, in Minneapolis in just 24 hours.
24 hours, mass shootings. And the only one we're talking about is the one where allegedly the shooter was trans. And so what they're going to try to do, if I know the Trump administration as well as I know
Well,
them, they're going to try to create a list or justify this as that list of trans people and database of trans people, because they're now, if you believe what Kash Patel said, going to look at them as if they are mentally unwell terrorists in the United States because one person misrepresented one group.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. I have been pointing this out for maybe 2 or 3 years now, that part of their strategy has been this idea of this trans liberation army, this idea of creating a fake but a real trans liberation army by sort of militarizing the trans community, using all the suppression and other things to sort of create a subject that we could all hate and vilify. And this is part of this broader strategy to sort of play with people's minds as they accept authoritarianism, but creating this enemy, this other enemy, is so important to them. And for a few years now, this idea of the Trans Liberation Army has been sort of percolating, which is basically trans people fed up with being discriminated against, tired of being isolated, using their weapons and that they might have acquired, or their military training. A lot of people coming to the military might be trans, to sort of start taking action against the society, in against fascism, against whatever, against discrimination. That is a very troubling idea. When you look at these, this is now the fourth incident, by the way,
Oh,
involving
that's
a
the first
trans
I've heard
person.
of it. That's fascinating. So your suggestion is that there's some kind of operation where they're
Yeah.
trying to militarize and radicalize trans people to justify what their goals are in terms of kettling or demonizing or militarizing against the trans community.
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons why there's so much discrimination in their
Wow.
policies. And it's, there's been a couple of incidents where it sort of started. I've seen a couple of people talk about it. And I started highlighting this on the show, a narrative at least, a couple of years ago, because it really was something I think was concerning me that it started happening, which is why I'm so aware of the number of trans people involved in these shootings, which is 4, by the way, the last 5 years. 4 trans people involved in a number of school shootings or shootings in mass shootings. Now, this is a significant thing because trans people are not a huge part of the population. They're a tiny part of the population. If they're over-indexing for some reason in these shooter things, and what worries me, knowing how back in the day when Steve Bannon started creating the sort of alt-right, and how they did it was they did it on this what's called Chan 4 and then Chan
4chan,
8. Yeah,
4chan,
4chan and Chan
and
8.
8chan, yeah.
Yeah, and they used to find people who might be autistic or something like that, or people on the scale in that way, or other maligned people, and started militarizing them, and sort of, I've always suspected that maybe there are sort of latent shooters that are just waiting to be triggered across the country through Chan 4, through other mechanisms, because it is an unusual phenomenon that we have
Yeah.
in the United States. It doesn't happen anywhere else in the world, that you
What,
have
like
mass
mass
shootings.
shootings?
Not
You
in
know what
this, not in this
qualifies as a
case, and not in
well,
this
you know what
case.
qualifies as a mass shooting? Just some stats. What qualifies used to qualify as a mass shooting was 4 or more. They put or 2 or more. Now they brought that number up to 4. The Trump regime did that recently. I don't know if you know that. In 2025, there have been 337 mass shootings. How many have been committed by trans people? What did you say? 4 so
Sorry,
far
in the last
this
five
year?
years, it's been 4.
Okay, in the last 5 years, there have been, well, let's just say this. In the last 10 years, there have been 7,000 mass
Oh,
shootings,
wow.
around roughly 7,000.
Wow.
7,000 that we know of. 4 have been committed by trans people. So in the last 5 years, so have that number. Let's say 3,500 mass shootings in the last 5 years. 4 have been
Yeah.
committed by trans people. And I am telling you right now, the Trump regime, MAGA, the Christian lobby group, they will take this, they will literally take this and use this to torture the trans community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is going to be a way for them to firstly ratchet up all their other anti-LGBTQ efforts, including they were announced the other day a trans registry that we put on the show here. So, they
Doesn't
are.
this justify a trans registry in
That's
your
what
mind?
they're going to argue. They're going to argue this is a mental instability. Therefore, they need to keep a registry. Therefore, they need to put them in camps. Therefore, they need to, label them terrorist groups. And when you go from there, you go, well, maybe it's not just the trans people. Maybe it's the LGBT people or the LGB people who are also
Let me
on their
help
way
you.
to being trans.
Let me
And,
help you. Let me help you. Let me help you with this. And someone just put it in the comment section. And I think this is the most important aspect of every one of these shootings. Trans, straight, guy, girl, old guy,
Yeah.
fucking alligator with opposable thumbs, doesn't matter to me. They're all gun owners. They're all rabid Second Amendment freaks in a country with 600 million guns. So you can say that that's the end of the story because that's where the end of the story is for me. And America is going to deflect. The NRA will deflect. Everybody in the United States will deflect. The problem are the guns and the people with them. And you got 370 million people in that country toting 600 million guns.
There are 20 million privately owned firearms in Canada, but you don't get these kinds of shootings.
Well, no, but that's because there's 20 million firearms in Canada and 35 to 40 million people here. That's half our population. Generally speaking, people in mega cities don't have guns. And gun owners in Canada are all generally hunters or sport shooters.
Right.
Now, the ones that are legally registered are registered to people who live on the land. Canada's a big fucking country. And I applaud their gun ownership, provided they're hunting guns and not AR-15s and handguns and Uzis that they say that they need for hunting. Those are not allowed. Canada has a gun registry. Canada not only has a gun registry, we have a massive list of banned guns that the NRA is flooding money into Canada. The Canadian CCFRA, the Canadian Firearms Association, run by this absolute mega troll named Tracy. Can't remember her last name. Anyway, she looks like she stole all the makeup. And she's like a Trump acolyte, a MAGA acolyte.
Yeah.
And her goal, as in Canada, is to put guns in the hands of as many people and keep all the rules and regulations away from guns. Not only is that not going to work, it is because it is not a right to own a firearm in this country. It is not an amendment. It is not in our charter. It is in our charter what we call a privilege. And if you abuse the privilege of that firearm, not only do you get all your guns taken away, you are never allowed to own one again. And if you do, you will go to jail for a very fucking long time. So that is very different.
That makes a difference. But I think that there's something else that's going on because 20 million guns is a lot of guns, and you don't get these kind of shootings. So for me, there is something happening in the American zeitgeist, whether it's disinformation, whether it's psychological operations or something else that's triggering or causing people to be so much more violent in this way. And I think it's unique to America. I don't see these stories coming up with such regularity from anywhere else in the world. And there is something very peculiar about that. I know in the last year of the Biden administration, they put together a task force to identify exactly what it was. Because in each case, these things are normally the police officers or the state police take care of the incidents. There's no centralized, sometimes the FBI joins in, but there's never been really a centralized look at why these mass shootings are taking place. Partly because they won't let us do that. The gun lobby is so powerful, you can't even study this stuff. Yeah. But it seems to me that there is just something happening that's triggering these people to do this.
Like intentional or unintentional? Or do you think it's just the zeitgeist? Do you think it's the atmosphere that is currently being pumped with hate and disinformation and ideological bullshit? Or do you think it's intentional, like you kind of mentioned earlier? Or maybe a little bit of both?
I just think, America's been targeted with so much psychological warfare in the last few years that we can't even tell the difference anymore necessarily of what's our real selves and what's being impacted by this disinformation or the psychological warfare that's impacting us from the outside. And, there's certainly evidence that, people on the spectrum were targeted by the alt-right initially to bring them on board to the new merging MAGA. And so, I can see how all this LGBTQ discrimination can certainly heighten tensions to a point where parts of any community are going to start getting militant about it. But I think there's much more than that. I think that there's also an undercurrent of unhappy, whether they're incels, whether they're trans people, whether they're just people who seem to be forgotten by the system, which has been amplified over the last 8 years through disinformation and other things. And there may be even ways to trigger those things remotely. I mean, just because you can have, intelligence operatives in other countries activate people by triggering them through Chan4 or through other groups. I mean, it's not impossible to imagine a world where that happens. So I know it sounds like it's at the weird
It's
edge
like
of,
it's like the really shitty trans version of the Born Identity is what you're
yeah,
talking
it's a little
about.
I mean, no, yeah, but not, yes, but not,
Yeah.
because he's
I
a
know.
hero.
I
But
made it was in layman terms, but yeah,
yeah,
I don't disagree. I mean, it stands to reason. I mean, America is a very fucking divided and angry place. And their rapist felon in chief president every day steps up to the podium and releases violent rhetoric. Like yesterday, and I wrote a piece about this on my Substack, deanblundell.substack.com. Yesterday, Trump, like he served up the craziest shit cake propaganda spin I have seen yet. Effort to distract, effort to make people angry, effort to make people scared. That's what he does, to your point.
mm,
He is a psychological operation.
yeah,
That man is a walking, talking
yeah,
thief and a
absolutely,
psychological operation. So he stands up or sits behind the desk hiding his diseased, rotting, necrotiting fasciatus hand, and he's like, okay, we're going to bring capital punishment back to the Capitol. That's what we're doing. Get it? You stop. You made a joke about it. Get it? Capital, capital. If you murder
very funny.
someone here, yeah, I mean, fuck. I mean, it's just so stupid.
Yeah,
You murder someone here in D.C., the Capitol, you get the death penalty. You get the death penalty. No habeas corpus, no nothing, no due diligence, no appeal. They're just gonna fucking kill you. That is the vibe in the United States. He's made it okay for a lot of people in the United States to take matters into their own hands. Kind of like he made it okay for all those dipshits on January 6th to show up because they thought, this is the environment. That guy says X. I can do X, so I'm going to do X.
yeah.
And America, on top of it, is an incredibly sick place. Whether it's pill addictions or psychosis, I mean, it is literally wrapped up in a violent psychological operation right now as we speak, as we sit here. And it doesn't matter which way you swing, what kind of clothes you like to wear, whether you want to call yourself Bobby or Billy, or you want to call yourself Sheila or Shane. None of that matters. What matters is you've got a bunch of very unwell people in the United States of America that are constantly being waterboarded with hateful, violent rhetoric and told to go take action on behalf of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the cult, maybe it's their God, but that is where America is, to your point. That's the undercurrent that I feel coming
You've
out
got
of the
so many
United States.
Americans that have felt so neglected by the system, by neglected by society, and they sort of disappear into the margins, they disappear into basements or whatever, and they're constantly feeding off what they find on the internet. And the internet is a breeding ground and a target-rich territory for intelligence operations. I mean, these are people who are looking for connection, looking for belonging. We saw it happen with the evangelical movement as well. That's part of the reason there's so much, racist weirdness in the evangelical movement. People are constantly being attracted into these dark corners of the internet, and they're easy prey. They're easy prey for intelligence operations
Yep.
to groom them into whatever they need to groom them.
Especially when you consider that piece that you just mentioned, which is the isolation piece. They finally find community. Someone's listening to them. Someone's giving them information. Someone's trying to help them. And what a lot of people don't understand now is, and I keep close tabs. I got 3 young men, 25, 22, 18. We've had very serious internet rules in our house for a very long time.
Mhm.
And I've always had an open door with my kids where I've said, "Hey guys, you see something online, Discord, whatever, bothers you, or you see some really hateful shit, or you see racism, violence, anybody threatens you, any of that stuff. Don't feed into it. Come to me and we'll talk about it. We'll figure out what it is." And that's all they've ever done. So I've got 3 very internet savvy, very wise, very smart, very cautious young men that I've raised to be men, but I've also raised them to understand that life and decisions have consequences, and you're not victims in any stretch of the
Yeah.
imagination. You are loved and you are accepted. I am their community. This family, all of us, we're their community, and they know that and they feel that. There are so many people, and listen, I don't have any empathy for the shooter. I'm not. This isn't me saying, "Oh, let's feel bad." Fuck him.
Yeah.
But understanding root cause, and there are several root causes that go into making a psycho go and shoot up a church. You have to understand that is one of the biggest impetuses is loneliness, sadness, desperation, trauma, anger, and then the right chat room or the right operative, 4chan, 8chan, Discord, they find a room and they get their hands on these people and they mold them, and then they encourage them to go out and commit horrendous acts of violence because it'll make them a hero or a martyr, something they never thought they could experience. Now, you don't have to believe me. You can consult any behavioral expert, any extremist expert, any radicalization expert, any cult expert. That is the purposes of these groups, these cults, these religions. It's to bring people in, it's to make them feel at home, and it's to put them on your team so that they can become an operative. And in this case, as in every case, loneliness, desperation, sadness, and horrific trauma leads to what we're talking about today.
It is so well said. Can you look at those stats again? I don't know if they break down in terms of school shootings for last year and this year. Do you have that?
Is it a
I have it
topic?
here, but I've got. So I'll tell you what I think I'm seeing here. I don't know if it verifies in what you're looking at, but the U.S. had 83 school shootings in 2024. We've had 7 so far in 2025, and it's
That
August.
seems low.
That's
That
August.
seems
It's beginning. No, that's the actual truth. So I think that's right. I hope that's right. But it says, yeah, 7th school shooting this year across 7 states, and so that's an incredible drop. And we talk about intelligence operations, and you talk about people maybe, priming the zeitgeist with stories, with narratives that might distract from other stories, or, focus other people's attentions away from what really needs to be focused on. This is one of those things that you can do in a year like 2024, which is an election year, and you want to make Biden look bad. You could ramp it up to 83 if you wanted to versus 7 the next year when Trump's in power. Now, really, did it so much change between 2024 and 2025 that we've had a 90% drop in school shootings?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm still curating the information here, so I'll get back to you. I don't know. I had read in 2024 there were 338, not 74, but those were mass
No,
shootings.
these are school shootings.
School shootings in specific. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I'll double check those afterwards because I don't like doing this stuff on the fly, but it's worth looking into.
You kind of do because you're doing it on the fly. Right?
I'm doing it on the fly right now. I shouldn't be. There were 39 school shootings in 2024. Sorry, 80 as a result of injuries. Yeah, the stat is that I read is correct. It just breaks down into different categories of how many people were shot at each school.
Okay, I have it here. Hang on a second. Depends on the definition, but K-12 shootings with injuries or death, Education Week, 39 incidents in 2024, to your point.
That's 39, okay.
Any gun was fired or brandished or a bullet hit a K-12 school property, K-12 school shooting database. There were 330 incidences of people brandishing or shooting into or at schools.
Okay.
330 times, where there were a death or mass deaths, 39 in 2024.
Okay.
Gunfire on school grounds, K-12, at least 219 incidents on 2024.
So what I'm looking for is here is an 83 reported school shootings in 2024. But that is defined as where a gun was fired on school grounds, regardless of whether anyone was injured.
Yeah.
So I got 83. Do you get the same number there?
No, 39 that led to death and 330 where a gun was
39 that led
brandished.
to death, but
Yeah.
83 where there were shots is what they're saying here.
Are we doing
So I guess
research
it's the way I
live on
define.
the Substack, on the FiveStack Live? We're doing some like
You
on
know,
the
we
fly
can.
research.
It's an important story. I think people really care about this stuff, and I think there has been a drop. Whether you're seeing it just in the stats, or whether you just see it as a journalist covering these stories. Last year was one of the highest on record, and then this year has been not that big until now. So what is driving those numbers? Like, it's so unusual that you'll get these ginormous swings year to year. Is it who's in power? Is it the way we're looking at our culture in different years, or is there potentially people misusing our freedoms to militarize people, to trigger them, to groom them into people who might be operatives, who might be willing to pick up a gun and shoot a school? Number 5 on the countdown.
That was a really, really good bonus 30-minute deep dive into a breaking news story, ladies and gentlemen.
That was really interesting. Thank you for that. In Ukraine, Ukraine has confirmed that Russian forces have entered the Dnipropetrovsk. I can't even say it. DNIP.
Dnipropetrovsk.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Region for the first time, opening a new territorial front. This is a big deal because we're noticing that Trump is completely stepping away from any attempts to help Ukraine. We're also noticing at the same time that the peace efforts that he promised would achieve some results are not exactly achieving any results at all. At the same time as all this is happening, Germany is taking historic steps towards reinstating military conscription. That's a very, very big deal. Germany's cabinet approved requiring all 18-year-old men to fill out military fitness questionnaires starting next year, with mandatory physical exams by 2027. Chancellor Friedrich Merz held the first defense ministry cabinet meeting in 30 years to approve the measure. And he cited Russia's ability to attack NATO territory within a few years. I mean, we are, as we spoke about yesterday, continuing to edge towards a war. And as Trump pulls away from Ukraine and Canada steps in to help Ukraine, it's going to be a very difficult battle to keep Ukraine free and democratic and part of the West. And this announcement by Germany is a significant change.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this story to the FiveStack today, because I'm going to parallel that story, that preparatory story, how Germany is preparing for war. That's what that is. They're preparing for a war. If you think that they're just doing this just to make sure, Friedrich Merz and the German government know things we don't. Kind of like Mark Carney knows things we don't.
Yeah.
So let me talk about what Mark Carney did yesterday. Lands in Riga, Latvia, where Canada has control over a 3,500 person deterrent brigade in Riga, Latvia, at Adzai Air Force Base, just outside of Riga, for one reason and one reason only: to plan and prepare to fight Russians. It's the only reason that they're there. They've been there for a couple of years. Now, what did Carney do when he was there? He extended it for 3 fucking years. Okay? Now, when you consider the fact that Canada has control over a 3,500 person assault unit, a brigade of highly trained Army, Navy, Air Force people in Latvia bordering Russia to act as a deterrent, then when you consider what Poland's doing, very similarly, what Finland is doing on their border, how they're not only militarizing their border, they're putting a massive no-go zone between the border, 800 miles between the border of Russia and Finland. And then when you consider this conscription announcement from Friedrich Merz, ladies and gentlemen, they know things we don't. Okay? This is a very important point. You can't look at one incident and go, "Oh, they're doing that. Maybe they're preparing for that." Carney's, and by the way, Carney not only he's going to flood those European Union nation states that he visited with Canadian armed forces. This is also part of the agreement. Yes, you heard it here first. Is they know something's coming, and what's coming is an assault on the European Union member nations if indeed Putin is successful in Ukraine. So when you think about or hear these stories, always come back to that. What do they know that we don't? What are they preparing for? Because for Canada to start offering $50,000 bonuses for people to join the armed forces, $20,000 bonuses for people to extend their service, and $10,000 bonuses, free education, free healthcare for life, just to join, just to recruit CAF people, CAF members, that's going on right now.
Wow, I didn't realize that. That's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, incentivization to be able to recruit and build Canada's Army and Navy, which is 100,000 strong, 150,000 strong, to like 5, 6, 700,000 people. This is warp speed. And the only way that happens in Canada is incentivizing people or doing what Germany does. And that's also been part of a conversation, and I know that the Carney cabinet has had, and that's going to shake a lot of people. But here's the fact, is that we're not in 1996 anymore. This is not 1974. We are in 2025, and there is a world war brewing that world leaders are hyper aware of. And so how do you get to that point? You can script. Now, the other thing that this will do is this is going to further divide. Russia's going to pile all kinds of disinformation, misinformation. You don't want your children to be sent, which, by the way, Grok outed that whole psyop. If you're one of those people that's like, yay, support for Ukraine, and you get a tweet back going, would you send your child to the front lines? It's all bullshit. It's all this psyop. It's all disinformation, misinformation, trolling bots from Russia, MAGA, India. So we've already looked it up. I'm going to put a post up about it a little later on, either today or tomorrow, on our Substack. But you have to understand that this is a very fucking serious time. These people to conscript, like to tell the people of Germany, Canada, any other country, guys, sorry, when you turn 18, you're going to have to go to a recruiting office. You're going to have to slam your license or your driver's license down on the desk, and you're going to have to gear down and get a physical to see if you have to serve, not want to serve, have to serve, because trouble's coming and your country needs you. It's a scary time.
Yeah, the only thing is, only 60% of Germans say they'll definitely take up arms if they're attacked. The youth especially are largely opposed to conscription, obviously. It's not something that Germany's had to deal with for a long time. But if we're going to have this, existential threat arising, are people actually nationalistic enough? Do they care about democracy enough? Do they care about freedom enough to actually land up going to fight? I mean, I don't know. I don't get that
It's
sense
not,
of national
and here's
fervor.
the thing, dude. It's not like it was when we were kids.
No.
Like it's not playtime. And generation millennials, Gen Z, I think they call Gen Zers now, or they called Gen Zers. Try to get them off their phones is going to be difficult. Like trying to tell them they got to go and like not live a comfortable lifestyle. I mean, back in the first and second days of the First and Second World War, no one lived a comfortable lifestyle. Yeah. Everybody had to bust their hump. You had to walk like 3 miles to and from work. Everything was manual labor. So, going to war was, I might die, but I'm still going to have to work my ass off. That's how we are. We don't have that anymore. We don't have that same constitution in 2025, exactly. Specifically in those age groups. So that's why you see those numbers. And it is going to be a very, very tough sell in 2025.
I agree with you. Story number 4. It's another dark story, but let's talk about it. Canada's Medical Association in Dying program, that's the MAID program, has already begun secretly euthanizing citizens for mental illness 3 years before the official 2027 expansion date. Dr. Mona Gupta, chair of the Federal Panel on Psychiatric MAID, admitted that people with mental disorders are already accessing the program by qualifying through minor medical conditions while suffering from depression or suicidality.
Suicidality. You almost got it.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Ideation, suicidal ideation.
Yeah, got it. The case of Alan Nichols, who was euthanized for hearing loss while on suicide watch, exemplifies how paper-thin safeguards have turned the program into what critics call a conveyor belt for death for vulnerable populations. Over 470 Canadians were euthanized in 2024.
My thoughts?
Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts. It's a good story The Atlantic has, by the way. Everyone should read the story. It's titled "Canada is Killing Itself."
Yeah. And Every single person that decided to take their own life peacefully using medically assisted dying supervision, it's their choice. It's their choice. You can say that they're mentally ill, still their choice. You can say that, the cancer's not aggressive enough. We want you to be around, their choice. You can say, well, they're broke and they're angry and they shouldn't. It's always their choice.
Absolutely.
So there's that part of it. Is it sad? Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe life is worth living, but there are a lot of people who don't. And there are a lot of people who suffer. There are a lot of people that suffer in ways that you and I and anybody else on this planet will never understand. There's a saying I saw on the sandwich board is be kind today because somewhere someone is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Now, this story is also being used as a cudgel to go after the Liberal government here in Canada.
Mhm.
It is being used to paint Canada via foreign sources, including Russia, including MAGA, as heartless, being used to paint Canada as a country that is like, hey, you don't want to live? Fuck it. Here's a couple needles. It doesn't work like that. You got to go through counseling. You got to apply. And if you
It's
apply
very
and
difficult, yeah.
it's incredibly hard. It's like becoming trans at the age of 18. You got to go through years of counseling here.
Mhm.
And these are stories that people never hear, and these are facts and context that people don't understand. But I stand with, like I do with women who want to terminate a pregnancy, I stand with anyone's ability to make any decision on their own behalf to do whatever they want, whenever they want, as long as it doesn't affect negatively everybody else around them, as long as it doesn't hurt or kill anyone else around them. So when you hear these stories, remember that. Remember that's the only salient opinion anybody should have on MAID or
The,
medically assisted suicide. The only salient opinion.
the one thing I will mention here is that, and I think this article gets to it, is, you've got a rising number of homeless people who can no longer afford to live in our society because they can't afford housing, they can't afford the groceries, they can't afford the basics of life. Because, I mean, frankly, government has failed to give them that. We used to be able to provide all of that for all of our people. And we just can't seem to do it anymore. We have so many homeless people on the streets. And a lot of those people might get really tired of living on the streets and might get really tired of being, you know, looked at like dirt and feeling like dirt, and then also not seeing any way out of it. And
Yep.
we're doing it to them by increasing the housing prices, by making it difficult for them to get access to housing. And yet those people are the people I worry about the most. They might, under other circumstances where they have proper housing, where they have proper facilities, where they have some career path, where they have some sort of training, that they might be happy, successful, contributing members of society. And by giving them an easier way out, I'll say easier, not easy way out, but an easier way out through MAID, um, is not what we should be doing as a society. So I absolutely applaud MAID as a program. And my mother, when she passed away, she was very interested in the program. We spent a lot of time looking at MAID and whether that was an option for her. She landed up not doing it, but there's a lot of reasons why many people would want to do it, and it's great. But and that was a physical terminal disease. There's nothing else they could have done. But when it comes to mental issues, and when it comes to issues like being homeless or being, just unable to look after yourself, maybe it's addiction, maybe there's other curable things that you could be involved in, to not look after those people first and see if there's a peaceful way, a normal way out of them, a medical way out of their situation, then I think that could become a very slippery slope for us as a society.
But that's part of the counseling. That's
Yeah.
what people don't understand. When you go and you apply for MAID, that's part of the counseling is finding alternatives for taking your life. And if they cannot find alternatives for taking your life and you've applied and you're accepted, you get to make that ultimate decision. When it comes to the homeless situation, there aren't a lot of homeless people that have a family doctor where they can go through the process and the channels to be able to figure out whether or not they can access MAID. Generally speaking, unhoused people will take their own lives in different ways. Again, very dark story. We don't need to talk about it. So those are I believe outliers. But to your point, yeah, of course. I mean, you want people to experience the beauty of life, but there are people out there that it is metaphysically impossible for them to do so, and that is the ultimate freedom in my mind. But listen, I look at death very differently. I really do. I think it's just the doorway into whatever is happening next. And I don't believe in the afterlife. I don't believe in any of those things, but I believe there is something. And so I'm unafraid. And I used to be very afraid of death as a young child. I couldn't sleep. I used to go to bed and I'd go, I hope I wake up tomorrow. What's going to happen if I don't? Is it just going to be black? Am I going to be trapped in blackness? And I literally, from grade 2 to grade 4, my parents had to sleep in my room
Oh, wow.
because I was so petrified of the idea. Now I embrace it. And so I've got a very different take on this, and I always revert back to a person's individual decision. And I've had friends that have chosen to take that route. And as sad as it is, specifically when it's very, very, when it's messy, when it's not planned, when it's something you're not expecting, the damage that is left behind for all the people that love you is incredibly heartbreaking, and not something that if you explain that to someone considering taking their own life, this is the philosophical part of this, I'm sure they would reconsider. But for those who just are in too much pain, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever the deal is, that is their decision. And there isn't an Atlantic article or a clergy person or someone in any political party that will ever move me off that position. I feel the same way about abortion. I think a woman's right to choose is the most important right a woman has. So
Yeah,
that's
I
how I
agree
feel
with
about
all
that.
of that. I also think, we shouldn't abdicate our responsibility to making sure that the mentally ill or the homeless people in our society are well looked after, and that they have sufficient, resources to be able to at least access housing and other things, so they're not trapped in a downward cycle that could lead them to death.
Agreed.
The number three, we're on number 3. Oh my gosh. We better hurry up. A coordinated network
Well, who says we
of
can't go
12
after
Democratic
5?
governors
We
is
can go after 5. We can go after 5. It's okay.
Yeah, we can.
Keep going.
Right up.
All right.
So this is number 3 story. A coordinated network of 12 Democratic governors is implementing what's being called soft secession. We spoke about this yesterday, using constitutional federalism to block Trump's attempts to federalize local police and state services. This comes from deanblundell.substack.com. You picked up the story from yesterday. What's going on? What is soft secession, and who's involved?
Soft secession is the best fucking phrase I've heard this year, by the way. As we flip the script from pretty dark stuff to really cool stuff.
Yeah.
This is what America has been asking for since the inception of the Trump regime 2.0. Can someone fight back?
Yeah.
Yeah. 12 different U.S. governors and all their attorneys general meet every single morning at 8 o'clock, and they go, how are we going to fuck this guy's wagon up today?
Yeah.
What are we going to do? And the interesting part is, not only is it constitutional, nonviolent, the interesting part is all of these states have realized what Trump has done federally, they can do at the state level, which is completely fucking ignore the norms, which is completely ignore the ability any other government, no matter if they're yours or someone else's, has to be able to tell you how to govern in one of your 50 states. Now, of these states, and this is brilliant, this is beautiful, of these states, they're all the states you think, they're not all Democratic. Some are Republican. You got J.B. Pritzker, Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, Kathy Hochul, Josh Shapiro, Maureen Healy, Tim Walz, Jared Polis, Phil Murphy, Wes Moore, Katie Hobbs, Michelle Lujan Grisham, and Tina Kotek, among others, including a couple of governors that are coming from red states. I hear Indiana is coming to the party this week, as well as Iowa, strangely enough. This will be very interesting because Iowa just lost that supermajority seat to a Democrat. First time it's ever happened in history.
That is interesting. That is very interesting.
So not only can you lean into that, absolutely, the undercurrent, but what you have to do is you have to understand what soft secession is. And it's really, really simple. What is soft secession? Let me explain it to you because I did in this thing, and this is what they're doing. And they call them soft secession meetings every single morning. They talk about what Trump did, what they're going to do, and how they're going to block Trump. This is the playbook. This is what they're doing. Folks, pay very special attention. You'll be very happy that you've got at least 12, closer to 15 governors in the United States of America that are standing up for American values. Here we go. Number 1, refuse commandeering. State agencies aren't repurposed as federal enforcement arms. Local police stay local. You keep those people out. They're going to start stopping the National Guard at the border. Number 1. Number 2, Sue early, sue often. Temporary restraining orders, preliminary injunctions, multi-state briefs that narrow or block the federal overreach before it lands on your street. Number 3, build shield laws protecting doctors, patients, migrants, voters, journalists from out-of-state fishing expeditions. Harmonize protections across the state. Control the purse. That's number 4. Creating a budget, controlling the purse, creating a budget that backstops any federal retaliation. Use procurement power, and states have trillions of dollars in state and local purchasing power to set standards and deny contracts that undermine the rights of anybody in your state. Use guard lawfully, keeping National Guard units under state control for public safety and being very explicit about that. They're developing some new laws in these 12 states to do that right now. Number 6, data and privacy walls. They're going to, as you pointed out yesterday, stop sharing any sensitive data with the federal government. They can do that. It is constitutional. And number 7, communications discipline. Governors and attorneys general move in lockstep. Legal filings in 12 to 15 states every single time, every single day, every single announcement. Doesn't matter. And then messaging arriving together to signal certainty to the courts, residents, and frontline workers. And the attorneys general that is leading this charge, Rob Banta from California, along with Gavin Newsom. They seem to be the ringleaders. And the goal is to tell the federal government to FO.
Yeah.
In every
break
capacity.
The rules. Break the rules. You don't have to follow the norms. I mean, that is the most important thing that Democrats can learn throughout this whole process, is that the Republicans and Donald Trump does not follow the rules. We don't have to follow the rules either. And
novel idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's novel.
It is novel. We could write our own rules. The only thing I would say is, I think it's great. I think it's great that people are doing it. And it's great that these very, very smart governors are coordinating their efforts and that they're having a big impact in the way that they're doing it. And it's a good thing. I can't argue against it at the end of the day.
No, and I love the idea. I'm still hoping for hard secession. Like, I'm still hoping for Canada.
I like my soft on. You keep your hard ons. I'll keep my soft ons.
I got a hard on for hard secession. I really do. Like, just give it to me. California, Canada, give us a call. And here's the other thing. I don't know if you saw this. This was fascinating. One of the foreign ministers from Denmark flew to California to sign a deal to start a new business between Denmark and California, not with the federal government. And now here's the other thing, and this is another thing. California is at Canada's doorstep going, hey, by the way, we're not them. Yeah. You come here. We'll make sure you're safe. We'll give you all kinds of benefits. Come to California. So California is literally acting like their own country right now anyway.
And they can. I mean, they're big enough and they've got the muscle to do it. I mean, there's such a huge economy. I just wish the world would just move to the middle. We just want a middle movement that absolutely, because common sense is moderate, it rejects the extremes.
Well, then you get the boring 90s and the boring.
I don't mind the boring.
2000s.
Give me World War III or boring 90s. I'll take boring 90s any day. I like the 90s. We had Milli Vanilli in the 90s.
I did too. I'd like to go back to that time. I don't recognize this one, but this is very exciting, if you will. Very exciting.
The number 2 story. This is an update on that Subway guy, the guy who threw the sandwich at the ice guy. So he's a
sandwich patriot.
A federal grand jury refused to indict ex-DOJ employee Sean Charles Dunn, who threw a sandwich at a federal agent. And another jury rejected 3 separate attempts to indict Sidney Reed for allegedly assaulting an FBI agent. So you got 2, the grand juries are doing their thing. They're rejecting, these possible charges that they were pursuing from the U.S. attorney, Jeanine Pirro. It's crazy. Can't believe we're saying those words of that name. But that's interesting. But it's also interesting that Donald Trump has been trying to institute what he calls a capital punishment, death penalty in the capital for any murders that are committed. So you've got the president going one way in terms of crimes. You've got grand juries going completely the other way.
Yeah, it worked, right? The courts worked. I mean, Trump has this amazing ability, though, and I will say this, to turn distractions and pure theater into policy. Right? Yeah. That's what he tried to do with yesterday's announcement that he was going to murder all the murderers. Like it's just so fucking stupid. We're going to kill all the killers. We're capital punishment in the Capitol. Get it? Capital punishment in the Capitol. Everybody get my play on words. I still got it.
Saturday Night Show starring Donald Trump.
And this is when I heard that story, and I went and watched the video of this guy from the DOJ with the sandwich in his hand. He's wearing a really nice Hawaiian shirt. He's clearly in his cups. Had a couple of cocktails, which hey, everybody does. Apparently, he got mouthed off by this ICE agent, and then he turned around, started mouthing off. The ICE agent said something back to him, and it's on. The sandwich leaves the hand, and it hits him in his Kevlar vest. And it gets mayo and some lettuce on it. And they chase this guy down and beat the wheels off of him. Then they arrest him. And then Donald Trump, just to fucking make an example of him with his ditzy, airheaded, like luggage-looking Pam Bondi attorney general. It's like, if you spit, we hit. We're going to come get everybody. That guy just got fired. And we're going to sentence him to the harshest jail sentence of all time.
That's a very good
You can't. You can't, and you didn't, and you tried because everybody laughs at you. Everybody laughs. I laugh every time they're like, we're going to enforce the law at the highest levels. We're going to do this. The guy threw a fucking sandwich, and your boss is a 34-time felon and an adjudicated rapist and draft dodger and a thief and a con man, and you're going after the fucking sandwich guy.
It's such an important point. I mean, the guy was convicted and got away with so many things, and then gets away with all these prosecutions for his crimes, which included treason.
Yeah.
Like absolute treason, stealing secret documents, classified documents from the White House and storing them in his garage and his toilet. I mean, it's just like, what is going on? And then you've got these guys getting, murder charges or assault charges because of a sandwich.
Yeah, think about that. Guy's an adjudicated rapist in the White House. He's a 34-time felon. He's got 26 credible sexual assaults to his name. Yeah. He's been convicted of fraud, ordered to pay $500 million for it. He's been convicted of and found guilty of so many crimes and settled so many lawsuits with so many people. And he stands up there, and his administration's like, we're fucking law and order here. Yeah. We're going to get the guy that threw the fucking sandwich at an ICE agent's Kevlar vest. And I can tell you this, he got tomato seed shrapnel in his beard. So we're going to get him. Like America is hypocrisy. It is fucking wild to me.
It is wild. I mean, look, I've been researching this guy a lot lately, and he has been a money laundering front for Russian money for decades now, for like billions and billions of dollars. That's all he's been. He's otherwise not existed. He's basically just a giant shoveling, vehicle for money, for Russian illegal money stolen out of Russia, stolen from the Russian people, that has been like thrown into his companies and then churned into clean money on the other side. I mean, there is nothing that this man has done actually to like build anything or to achieve anything except accepting money from the Russians. And this is the guy who is now using that money, or has allowed that money to be used to destroy the American capitalist system. And he's the guy who's going to be Mr. Law and Order. He's the guy who's doing all these pump and dump schemes to like enrich himself and his best friends when he does these tariffs. And he's the guy who's going to be enriching himself out of crypto while the rest of us suffer, while we all have, hyperinflation and stagnation going on. This is the most hypocritical government you've ever come across.
Yeah, they're a kakistocracy. They're con men, they're con people, they're liars, they're useless at their jobs. Fucking Pete Nutsack is the secretary of defense. Pam Bondi, who chased ambulances like Better Call Saul, is the attorney general. His personal lawyer is the assistant attorney general, Todd Blanche, who's a fucking terrible lawyer.
Yeah,
I mean,
Ginny Pirro.
A Ginny Pirro who hasn't been sober since her 30s.
Yeah,
who hasn't practiced law or adjudicated anything in her life, is the attorney general in D.C.
Yeah.
Kash Patel. At your 4 eyes, Kash Patel. Which way you look, Kash? Which way you going?
Just terrified.
Kash Patel, a podcaster who grifted and sold supplements and T-shirts.
Yep. Dan Bongino
is the director of the FBI.
No, it's really bad. And this, what's her name? Alina? I can't remember her name.
Alina Habba.
Yeah.
You know what Alina Habba did?
Who's the non-attorney for New Jersey.
Yeah,
she's not even allowed to be practicing there. She's doing it.
Yeah. And she's been fired and she refuses to leave.
Yeah.
Alina Habba, You know what she did? She was a lawyer for people that own parking lots.
Suits New Jersey. It's a
Yeah.
fit for New Jersey.
I don't know.
Oh boy. Well, there you go. That's exactly who you've got in this administration. So, and those guys are trying to sentence the sandwich guy to
8
whatever.
years. 8 years of hard time in a federal lockup.
So crazy. Finally, the number one story is Denmark has hauled in America's top diplomat after discovering at least 3 Trump-linked Americans running clandestine influence operations in Greenland. Wow. They're compiling loyalty lists of pro and anti-Trump Greenlanders while pushing secession narratives to weaken Danish ties. This marks Copenhagen's second summons this year, following reports of U.S. intelligence targeting Greenland's independence activists. This is a story from Dean Blundell.substack.com. What do you got, Dean?
Quite a bit. What I need to do before we get started and finish with this number one story, and I'm glad it's the number one story because it is a huge story. What you have to understand is that Donald Trump and the Trump regime did not appoint ambassadors to go and serve in foreign countries. They appointed operatives. They did not, let me say that again. Donald Trump and the Trump regime did not appoint diplomats to be ambassadors. They appointed friends and operatives. Now, let me take you through some of those. Kimberly Guilfoyle. She's the ambassador to fucking Greece.
Yeah. Donald Trump Jr.'s ex-girlfriend, former Fox News personality. What else has she done? She was Gavin Newsom's
porn, drugs. Gavin Newsom's ex. Yeah, before she got all the stuff done to her face and body.
Yeah. Victim of plastic surgery from the Trump family.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She had the Mar-a-Lago makeover. Absolutely. Yeah. Let me again. Woody Johnson, owner of the New York Jets, really good friends with Trump. He's the ambassador to England. He knows nothing about it. Yeah. Let me take you to another one. This is a good one. Here in Canada, we have this dickhead named Pete Hoekstra who got kicked out of the Netherlands for trying to organize far-right rallies with the far-right leader Geert Wilder.
Yeah.
In the Netherlands. Yeah. He got kicked out. They're like, fuck, you got to leave. You can't do that. That's called espionage and foreign interference. Same guy who came to Canada and is now running around doing interviews with far-right podcasters like this ditz named Jasmine Lyonnais, doing interviews with far-right podcasters going, Canada started the trade war. This is unfair. It's all Canada's fault. You guys are nasty. Like they're all operatives. So let's go back to Denmark for a second. The accusation is, and
Charles
I've got a whole
Kushner. That's a good one.
Charles Kushner. Too. Yeah, is he France?
Yeah, France.
Oh yeah, that's great. Charles Kushner, he's Jared's dad, did time for honeypotting his brother with a hooker.
Yep. Got it all on video. Send it to his wife.
You can't write this stuff. And this is information a lot of people don't know, right?
Yeah.
You just go, this guy's the ambassador. Fuck, far-right influencer, fake influencer, cosplaying influencer, this guy named Nick, can't remember his last name. He was just named the guy that was like, I'm banning M&Ms because they're too woke. They've got too many green ones in them. Remember that guy? Yeah,
he put out
a whole bunch of tweets. He's like, my wife's job is to go and get me wings from Hooters while I watch rugby. Like that. He has been literally named by Trump to be the ambassador to fucking Malaysia.
No ways. Really?
Oh yeah. So they're all operatives. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Get to Denmark. Since Donald Trump's effort, and there's a U.S. base in Nuuk, I believe, which is just outside of, I'm going to say it wrong, and it's going to sound real, Pitifik or Putifik. I can't remember. It's a little
like that. Yes.
Small. There's a base there called the Space Base. If you remember, J.D. Vance showed up with his wife. They're freezing cold. No one was there, and they made such an ass out of themselves and insulted the people of Greenland and Denmark so badly that the base commander, this lovely female base commander, apologized to Danish officials, Greenland's officials, and was summarily fucking fired the next day for it.
Yeah.
So what happened is after she got fired, they flooded the zone. They sent a whole bunch of operatives to not only organize rallies, take names, but to spread a bunch of money around. Give people money for businesses, give struggling businesses that had influence with the government money. And the entire goal was to secede. And keep in mind, these are not people that are loosely attached with Donald Trump. They're attached to
Yeah.
Donald Trump. And those names are coming out. And so Denmark owns Greenland. It's Danish territory, has been for hundreds of years. If you know anything about world history, Nordic history, you should read up on it, read why. But the long ass short version of this story is that they got caught red-handed because he hires dumb people, dumb operatives, stupid idiots that spread money around and start talking about how cool they are and how important they are, because he hires people in his image to go and do that job. All three of those people have been picked up and are currently not just held in custody, but all three of those people are currently being deported from Greenland. And the ambassador from Denmark had to summon the U.S. ambassador to Denmark, who is also an operative, and they're having a very stiff conversation. What time is it? They probably already had it. A very stiff conversation. And Denmark is said to be making some decisions. They're also consulting with NATO on Article 4.
I was going to ask about that. I mean, it's not really allowed to be doing this kind of stuff,
No,
right? It's
no,
not,
you
NATO
can't.
does not let you do this.
No. Article 5 is like if you get attacked. Article 4 is if someone's trying to fuck you over in your country and it's from your own organization, NATO, then there are very fucking severe consequences. So would encourage everybody to go and read that story. It gives you great context, kind of the players, who they are, what they're doing. If you go to deanblundell.substack.com, where you can get 50% off your annual subscription for life till the end of the month, but free page, share that story with anybody. It doesn't matter to me. It's a great story, and it leans into the Trump's aristocracy, how terrible they are, even at fucking spying in Greenland. All three of them got caught. Like, it's unbelievable. But it's really important. There's a couple stories about Pete Hoekstra to remember that Donald Trump doesn't have ambassadors in these countries. He's got operatives. Very important to remember.
Very important to remember. Great story. There's lots of good stuff on deanblundell.substack.com today. Everyone should check it out and subscribe. On narrative.org, I've got part 8, so chapter 8 of The Greatest Heist. We go into the year that Robert Maxwell died and how Russia used him as a vehicle to move a lot of money into the capitalist system to upend capitalism, which is how we got to where we are today. So that's at narrative.org. Tomorrow, we'll be back at 3 o'clock at the right time.
Well, that's up to you. You told me you wanted 4 today, and I'm cool with 4.
I thank you for being so accommodating. I was up all night writing, and I just needed a little nap, so that's why, just to be completely honest.
You pushed our time with our friends here, hundreds and hundreds of people for a nap?
Not because I was actually not functioning. I'd been up for 24 hours writing the story, and I was like, I can't actually appear in front of you and everybody else.
You had butthole eyes.
Incoherent. Yeah,
you had butthole eyes. Yeah,
I was just like butthole eyes.
Butthole eyes. Yeah, it's when your eyes get all sunk because you're so tired and they look like buttholes.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't even I was just exhausted. I was yawning every second. I would have been a disaster on the show. So the little nap was worth it. Thanks everyone for letting me do that. Hope you enjoyed the chapter 8 of The Greatest Heist. And we shall be back tomorrow at the regular time.
Good to see you, Phil.
Good to see you too.
Talk to you soon. Thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
Cheers, everybody.